to Vixen's Vibe Crochet Cowl for chart number 1. By this point, you have completed the I-cord casing for your cowl and the sort of faux Latvian braid, and you've already done 1 round of split single crochet. You were also very aware that you need to make sure that these were nice and consistent in size and not too tight, because the whole rest of your cowl is worked with the split single crochets. In this lesson, we will be following along with this particular chart. This is chart number 1 of Vixen's Vibe. We will be reading the chart from right to left all the way across, and you will be repeating it all the way around until all of the stitches are worked. As you transition from one round to the next, you will read going up and then always right to left. You can see that we have 10 total rounds on this section or this chart. And for several of the rounds, you actually will be using 3 different colors. So what I want to do in this lesson is twofold. I want to help you maintain control of your colors as you're using 3 different colors throughout a row, so that way you can have consistency throughout the entire piece. I want to help you reading the charts, and then I want to help you when it comes to tucking a color in the places that you're going to be expanding more than 4 to 6 stitches across. So I guess that's 3 things really, but it all comes down to you just learning how to work up this really great pattern. Now, this is a free pattern over at marleybird.com, or if you have the pattern upgrade, you can find the chart inside your Marley Bird house. If you have the pattern upgrade, you also could find the color blocks chart if you want, so you could follow along with the color blocks chart to know exactly how many stitches you need to do of each color across each of the rows. Totally up to you, and that is an exclusive to the pattern upgrade. So what I want you to do now is go ahead and grab your actual piece. As you know, this is not to scale. This is just a little sample size, so that way I can show you here on video. I'm not even using the same colors you are, but this is just for demonstration purposes. And we're going to get started with round number 1. I will still be using my 5.5mm hook, and I'm going to use my gray color here as my main color, which on my chart, it would be like my hunter green. And then I am going to use this really pretty purple color here for the white in my chart. And for the blue in my chart, I'm going to use the teal color that I use down here, just because it's available and it's right here. Now, one thing that you will start to notice here is I have my 2 colors that are going to be creating the motif over here on my right side, and I have my main color, or it's kind of my background color, over here on my left side. As I am crocheting, just like when I was doing my color work down here, I like to keep my colors separated, and I make sure they are always in the same spot. So this teal blue color will always be held sort of up here. My purple color will be held down here, and then my gray will be over here. And you'll see what I mean as we're working along. Okay, so I've already got my join here, and we're going to jump right in with the split single crochet here at the very beginning. So I will come into here and work 1 split single crochet, and then do the next split single crochet. And the following is where I have to introduce my purple. So I'm going to finish this split single crochet with my purple. So I like to hold my hook down here. I will grab the next color, whatever color I'm supposed to use, wrap it around my hook, and then pull through. Okay. Now I'm going to come to the next stitch and work my split single crochet, and I will be wrapping my yarn with my purple, not my yarn, my hook with my purple. So I have my purple. I'm going to go up and over my hook, come back and pull up a loop. Make sure this first loop is your most important loop to keep that stitch nice and loose, so that way you can get into it later. The following stitch is actually with my gray again, so I will go ahead and yarn over with my gray and pull through. This purple, I'm going to have it lay over here towards this side, just like what I told you. Okay, now I do 2 with my purple, 1 and 2. And this one, I'm going to finish off with the next color. So I'm going to grab this teal color, wrap it around my hook, and pull through. Go to the next stitch, wrap around. Make sure you're using the working yarn, not the tail, and pull up a loop. Again, I will finish this off with the gray, okay? Now this teal, I'm gonna have it rest over there, okay? The reason I'm doing that is I don't want my teal and my purple to cross over. I want them to have very consistent floats behind my work here as I'm working along, okay? So I will now do 2 complete split single crochets with the gray. And it's the third one that I'm going to change colors again. Right? Is that right? Oh, nope. I only had to do 1. I'm sorry. That was where I get off sometimes. Okay, so I have 2. So this one, I'm going to introduce the purple. So I'm coming over here, not grabbing the tail. I'm grabbing the working yarn. And I'm going to float this across all of those stitches. And I want to make sure I'm not pulling that tail very tight, or not tail, but my float very tight. I complete my stitch with my gray. Again, I move my purple over here. You can see my float. This is my purple. My float is nice and consistent. It's not puckering any of my stitches. And now this is where I have the 2 split single crochets with the gray complete. And then the third one is where I change colors again, back to the purple. Okay, so I grab the purple again, over top, come through. And then I just keep on going here. So there's 1. And here's the second one. I'm going to finish this one with the teal. So I come over here and I'm grab the teal. Now I want you to notice this. This teal, it's coming from all the way over here across all these stitches over here. It's kind of a long float. It's not terrible, but it's kind of a long float. When I was making the prism, or not the prism, well, we were doing the prism make-along, but I was working with the Spectrum Stitch Swancho. We didn't have a whole lot of floats that were that long, so we didn't have to worry too much. And with that particular pattern, we were using a Swish DK weight yarn, which actually felt like it was a little bit bigger than this yarn. So one thing that we were very consistent about when making the Spectrum Stitch is that we did not want to work over our floats, meaning when I went into the stitch to create a new stitch, I made sure I was not working over any of the floats. When you're dealing with floats like this that are super long, if it is helpful to grab a float and just kind of grab a float and just work it so that it's tacking it down for one, that's absolutely okay to do that. There's also another option of how to weave in floats as you go. It's a little bit tricky and it might get really confusing to you, but I will show you how to do it. It's just like I do it in knitting. So I will show you how I go about doing that. But this here, so that is the 1 snowflake, then there's 3, here's the second snowflake, and then it finishes with 1. So I'm starting like the repeat again. So it would be those 2 there. Come back over here. Again, make sure you're picking up the purple. I don't want the purple ever to go underneath my green. Okay, don't ever want it to go underneath my green or my teal, whatever color you want to call that. Your opposite color. You always want them separated. And then come in here. And then I'm going to be switching to the teal right here. Okay. What you would do if I wanted to tuck in this teal, okay, without having to pick up a float later on, what I could do is this. I could go ahead and work a few stitches here. Okay, let me show you. I'm just going to get a couple of these going so that way we have some distance from where the teal was used last time. Okay, so this is where I would be doing the 3. So let's say right here, let's say it's about a halfway point of where the teal is used right here to where I would use it again over here. So what I could do is I put my hook in, okay, I can yarn over and I can pull up a loop, okay, I could take my teal, I could wrap it around my hook, I could take my my main color, wrap it around, and and then leave this here and have this main color go underneath this teal and then through those two loops. So underneath the teal and through those two loops. So I've essentially kind of taken that teal. If you can see, it's kind of like I've twisted it around that gray and it's locked it in. Okay, so here we go. This is where I would be normally going like this. Let me show you. So right here, instead of having my float go all the way from here and then over another 3 stitches, you can see right here, it's tucked in behind that stitch. And it doesn't show on the right side, right? Doesn't show any more than anything else, doesn't show. And then what now happens is that float is kind of tucked in a little bit so that it's not going to be super duper long and have the possibility of snagging later on, right? Because it's waiting for me at this point versus this point, okay? So that is one way to tuck in, where you are essentially pulling your yarn through the teal and then the 2 loops that are on your hook. There's another way though. Let me show you another way, okay? And the other way is exactly how I do it in knitting. So I'm going to show you how I would go about doing that. If you wanted to, this is not a mandatory thing. This is one of those sort of advanced things. If you wanted to learn how to do it, you could do it, but this is not mandatory. All right, so we're going to do this again. Let's do 1 and let's do it here. Okay. So I've pulled up a loop and let's say we're going to tuck it in here. This time I'm going to grab my green, my blue here, my teal, and instead of going over top of my hook, I'm going to go underneath my hook. And now this one, I'm going to wrap my hook like I normally do, like a yarn over. So I did like a yarn over, or I'm sorry, I did like a yarn under and then a yarn over. The one that I did a yarn under of, undo it and just pull it out. And then pull that out. See how it's like tucked in there now? See that? And so then I could continue on. Oh, this one I want to grab my purple, right? And we're going to get back to where we're using that bluish, tealish, green color, whatever color you feel like you want to call it. And here it is. It's right there, tucked in. I'm going to use it as I normally do with my yarn over. Yarn over. And there it is. So if I look at the other side, it's tucked right underneath those V's. So this one, it's just like resting underneath the V's. This one down here where I worked through as if it was a loop on my hook, it's kind of like twisted around it. Both methods work great, but you can see these are much shorter floats than this one down here. See how long that one is down there? Because I didn't tuck that one in. Now what I can do is on the next round, when I'm doing more color work, I can grab this color work and maybe I just kind of work around it a little bit just to kind of snag it in place. I could do that. But if I'm going to go to the trouble to do that, I might as well just tuck it in just like this because it makes it look nice and neat. Does that make sense? Okay. So the floats, the main thing is you want to make sure that they are not pulling your fabric any tighter than what your fabric is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, have a nice drapey sort of feel, not be super stiff. And then you want to make sure that your split single crochets are not super tight, right? It's at this point you could measure all of your split single crochets again to see if you are getting on gauge. You want to make sure you are getting gauge. It is a cowl, so gauge isn't like super duper important. It isn't as important as like say a sweater because you can have a little bit of fudge room, but you definitely don't want this to be like Kevlar, right? You don't want it to be so tight that you have no flexibility. So you definitely want it to have some give, okay? And you will have that when you have the consistency in your floats and they have a little bit of give to them. Okay. So as far as color work, this is how you do color work, just like how you were doing down here, changing the colors. Every stitch we change colors, right? It's the same thing we did up here. When the next color was supposed to be a different color than what you had on your hook, you needed to finish that stitch with the new color. So that way the top of that stitch is the same color. Does that make sense? And then as far as you have 2 or 3 colors, if you have your colors separated out, where you always have one color on the bottom, one color on top, and then your main color over here. You could even have 4 colors in here and just keep it consistent throughout. You'd be all right. Now, should for some reason you're just like, I don't want to mess with 3 colors, but I like the way it looks, you could always make this whole thing with just 2 colors and then go back after the fact and work duplicate stitch around the color as it's supposed to be something else. Okay, does that make sense? So for duplicate stitch, it's really quite easy. Let me see if I can show you really quickly how you would do duplicate stitch. I'm going to use a different color yarn real quick just so that I can show you. So I'm going to pretend that we wanted to change one of these purples to this green color. So all I would do is I would thread the yarn onto my tapestry needle, and I'm going to come from behind and I'm going to come up through the stitch right underneath the V where the color is I want to cover, and pull this through, come up, and essentially they come around like I'm doing a shallow post stitch. Come around, and you want this to lay right on top of the color you're trying to cover. So what it has done, I've come around, I'm going to come back down here where I came in, right? Because I'm mimicking that V. Okay. So now, instead of having a purple there, it looks like I have a green. So I could do this whole thing, say with just the purple and the gray, and then I could go back after the fact and just do this green color. Does that make sense? Or say that you're just like, I'm not real sure if I want to have all these mixed colors here. Maybe I want to do the whole thing in white. You could do the whole snowflake in white and then decide later, I'm going to go back and change this to blue or to green or to red or to something else. Or maybe you'll do every other stitch in a different color. You can always accomplish that using duplicate stitch. It's really a great way to tweak your crochet without having to do a whole lot of extra work. Okay. So literally everything you need to know to complete this whole chart, we've just done, right? We've just done in those few stitches. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go ahead and complete the entire chart. All right. Complete the entire chart. When you get to these sections, like on round 3, when you have like this big swath of just plain, like your main color right here, before you have your blue and your main color, and you come back to blue, you could tuck a stitch in right there. Like your blue float, you could have it tuck in right there. Okay. Same thing as we're going through here, because from the blue to blue over here, I mean, that's a long path. And so just like what we did, we just tucked them in. We could tuck them in. One thing I do want to recommend is you don't want to tuck things in one right on top of the other. So say you, on this first round, you tucked one in on stitch number 11. The next round, you might want to tuck it in either on stitch 12 or stitch 10. But then the following round, you could go back to 11. Just don't stack them up on each other, because then the colors tend to bleed through. Okay, so if you kind of stagger out where you tuck them, that's always a good thing to do. But this is relatively easy. This up here is pretty much just like what we started with at the beginning, only that was half double crochets. These are just going to be split single crochets, changing colors. And then once you have all of this done, you'll be ready for chart number 3. So at the very end, just like before, go ahead and grab your stitch marker. Make sure you put your stitch marker through your live loop and connect it to your cowl, and then set it aside and be ready for the next section of work. All right, everybody, I hope that is helpful. I cannot wait to see your super duper cute cowls. Don't forget that if you want the pattern upgrade, you get this really great color blocks chart, and you also get the Stitch Fiddle link to this particular chart that you could go in and you could change the colors to be the exact colors that you're using on your cowl so you can see how they look. Okay, all of that is included in the Marley Birdhouse, and there's also a special gauge swatch pattern that is a bonus pattern if you're interested. Good luck, everybody. Talk to you later.